I'll never forget the moment my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. There, on the corner of 5th and Main Street, right in front of the coffee shop where we used to meet every Sunday morning, sat my son David. My beautiful, successful son, who just 2 years ago had graduated with his MBA and drove a brand new Lexus. But the man I saw that Tuesday afternoon looked nothing like him. He was sitting on a piece of cardboard, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. Dirty, torn jeans, and a jacket 3 sizes too big. His hands were shaking as he counted coins, actual coins, quarters, dimes, nickels, separating them into small piles like his life depended on getting the math right. His face was hollowed out, dark circles under his eyes that made him look 20 years older than his 32 years. I pulled over so fast I almost caused an accident. The car behind me honked, but I didn't care. I jumped out, leaving my door open, my purse still in the passenger seat, and ran to him. "David?" My voice cracked. "David, what are you doing here? Where's your car? Where's the Lexus we helped you buy?" He looked up at me, and what I saw in his eyes made me want to scream. Shame. Deep, crushing shame and fear. Pure, raw fear. "Mom," he whispered, glancing around nervously like someone might be watching. I can't explain right now. Please, just go." "Go?" I grabbed his arm, feeling how thin he'd become through that oversized jacket. "David, talk to me. What happened? Where's Victoria? Where's Emma?" That's when he broke. Right there on that street corner, my grown son started crying. Not just tears, deep, body-shaking sobs that made people walking by stare at us. "She took everything, Mom," he choked out between gasps. "Victoria and her mother, Linda. They took the car, they took my money, they forged my signature on documents, they drained our accounts, sold everything, and now—" His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "Now, they're threatening to take Emma. They said if I try to fight back, Linda will use her connections in social services to make sure I never see my daughter again." Have you ever felt rage so intense it burns through every other emotion? That's what hit me. Not sadness, not shock. Pure, white-hot fury. I pulled David to his feet and wrapped my arms around him. "Don't worry, baby," I said quietly. "I'll handle this." In my car, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't looked at in 15 years. James Patterson. We'd had a falling out over a case, said terrible things to each other, and hadn't spoken since. But if anyone could help me destroy these women who'd hurt my son, it was him. My finger hovered over the call button for just 1 second. Then I pressed it. "James, it's Margaret Harrison. I need your help, and I need it now." 4 hours. That's all it took. 4 hours later, Victoria Chen and her mother Linda were on their knees in my living room, crying and begging for mercy they didn't deserve. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how this nightmare really started. My name is Margaret Ann Harrison. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life, I've been a fighter. I spent 40 years as a family law attorney, building a reputation in this county as someone you didn't want to face in a courtroom. I won custody battles that other lawyers said were impossible. I protected victims of domestic abuse. I made sure children went to safe homes, not rich homes. And I never, ever backed down from a fight. But 3 years ago, I retired. My husband Richard had passed away after a brief illness, and the house felt too empty without him. The courtroom battles that used to energize me just made me tired. So I hung up my briefcase, sold the big house where Richard and I had raised our 2 children, and bought a smaller place closer to town. I started a book club, volunteered at the women's shelter twice a week, and spent my days doing exactly what I wanted. For the first time in decades, I wasn't fighting anyone else's battles. I had enough money, Richard's life insurance, my pension, some smart investments we'd made over the years. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. Most importantly, I had my children. My daughter Emily lived 2 states away with her husband and 3 kids, but we talked every week. And David, my youngest, my gentle soul, lived right here in town with his wife Victoria and their 7-year-old daughter Emma. David had always been different from Emily. Where she was fierce and independent like me, David was soft-hearted, trusting, the kind of person who believed the best in everyone. After watching me battle through family court for decades, he'd chosen corporate finance instead. "I want to build things, Mom, not tear families apart," he told me once. I respected that. He'd gotten his MBA, landed a great job at Prescott Industries, and seemed genuinely happy. When David married Victoria Chen 3 years ago, I'd been thrilled. She seemed perfect on paper. 28 years old, worked in marketing, came from what she called a close family. The wedding was beautiful. I'd contributed $20,000 toward it without hesitation. They bought a house in a nice neighborhood. Emma was born a year later. Everything looked perfect. Victoria's mother Linda was always around, but I told myself I was being overprotective. After all, I'd raised David and Emily alone after divorcing their abusive father when David was just 5. Maybe I didn't understand what a normal mother-daughter relationship looked like. Maybe I was jealous that Victoria had the supportive mother I'd never been able to be while working 80-hour weeks. For the first 2 years of their marriage, everything seemed fine. David and I had our Sunday morning coffee tradition, just the two of us at the little cafe on Main Street. We'd talk about his work, Emma's milestones, his plans for the future. He seemed happy. Tired sometimes, but happy. The changes started so gradually, I almost missed them. About 8 months before I found him on that street corner, David called to cancel our Sunday coffee. "Victoria's not feeling well, Mom. I should stay home with her." Reasonable, right? The next week, Linda's visiting and Victoria wants family time. The 3rd week, we're just really busy with Emma's activities. By the 4th week, I called him directly. Victoria answered his phone. "Oh, Margaret," she said, her voice sweet as honey. "He's in the shower. I'll have him call you back." He didn't call back. When I tried again the next day, she answered again. "He's at work, Margaret. You know how demanding his job is." Then, with a little laugh that made my skin crawl, "Maybe you're calling too much." He mentioned feeling a bit overwhelmed. That word, overwhelmed, it stung. But I backed off. I didn't want to be that mother, the one who couldn't let her adult son live his own life. Richard used to tease me about being overprotective. "Let them make their own mistakes, Maggie," he'd say. So I gave David space. But I started noticing other things. Emma changed. My granddaughter, who used to run into my arms chattering about everything, became quiet. When I visited their house, because suddenly I had to visit them, they stopped coming to me. Emma would sit very still on the couch, her eyes darting to Victoria before answering any of my questions. "Did you like the book Grandma sent you, sweetheart?" Emma's eyes would fly to her mother. Victoria would smile that tight smile. "She's been so busy with her tutoring schedule. We really need to focus on academics right now." Emma was 7 years old. 7-year-olds shouldn't need tutoring schedules that make them afraid to talk about storybooks. And David, God, every time I saw him, which became less and less frequent, he looked different, thinner, more tired. His smile seemed forced, like he was acting out a role. Once, when Victoria left the room to check on Emma, I grabbed his hand. "Sweetheart, are you okay? You can talk to me about anything." "I'm fine, Mom," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Just work stress. Victoria's been amazing, really helping me manage everything." But his hands were shaking, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. The last normal conversation I had with my son was at Easter dinner, 4 months before that terrible day on the street corner. I'd invited everyone to my house for a family meal. Victoria arrived with Linda, both dressed in black like they were attending a funeral instead of a celebration. David was late. "He's working so hard," Victoria announced, settling into my dining room like she owned it. "Such long hours. It's been very stressful for him." Linda nodded sympathetically. "Poor David. He pushes himself too hard. We've been trying to help him manage things better. When David finally arrived 30 minutes late, I barely recognized him. His suit hung loose on his frame. He must have lost 20 pounds. His eyes were bloodshot, exhausted. I pulled him aside in the kitchen while making coffee. "David, I'm worried about you. Really worried. What's going on?" "Mom, please. Not now." "Then when?" "You won't answer my calls. You've canceled on me 6 times. I'm your mother. I can see something's wrong." He glanced toward the dining room where Victoria and Linda were having an animated conversation. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I can't. Mom, it's complicated. I just need to figure some things out." "Figure what out? Let me help you. Whatever it is." "No!" It came out sharp, panicked, then softer. "No, Mom. Please, just give me some time. I'll handle it." I should have pushed harder. God, I should have dragged him out of that house right then and demanded answers. But I respected his wishes. I told myself he was an adult, that he could handle his own problems, that maybe I was seeing trouble where there wasn't any. 3 weeks later, he stopped responding to my calls entirely. My texts went unanswered. When I drove by their house, yes, I drove by like some stalker because I was that worried, David's Lexus wasn't in the driveway. Victoria's BMW was, Linda's Mercedes was, but not David's car. I texted Emily, "Have you heard from your brother?" "Not in a while. Victoria said he's been super busy with a big work project." "Why?" I didn't want to alarm her. "Just checking in. Love you." I considered going to their house and demanding answers. I considered calling David's workplace. I even pulled up private investigator websites on my computer. But every time, I talked myself down. "You're being paranoid, Margaret. He's a grown man. He's probably just stressed about work. You're overreacting." Except I wasn't overreacting. And deep down, I knew it. I'd spent 40 years representing victims of domestic abuse and financial exploitation. I'd seen this pattern 1,000 times. The isolation, the weight loss, the fearful glances, the controlling spouse who intercepts phone calls and makes excuses. I'd seen it in courtrooms, in police reports, in the haunted eyes of my clients. I just never thought I'd see it in my own family. That Tuesday afternoon when I found David counting coins on a street corner, all my denial shattered. In that single moment, I saw the truth I'd been avoiding for months. My son was being destroyed. Systematically, deliberately. And I'd let it happen because I was trying to be the cool mom who didn't interfere. Well, that ended the second I saw him on that cardboard, broken and afraid. The old Margaret, the courtroom warrior who never lost a case, she came roaring back to life, and Victoria and Linda Chen had no idea what they'd just awakened. I drove David straight to my house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. He sat in the passenger seat trembling, looking over his shoulder every few seconds like Victoria might appear out of thin air. "Mom, I shouldn't have told you," he whispered. "If she finds out I talked to you." "If she finds out? What?" I kept my voice calm, but inside I was screaming. "David, what else can she possibly take from you? You're living on the street." He flinched at that word. Street. Like hearing it out loud made it real. I got him inside, locked the door, and made him sit at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd helped him with algebra homework when he was 12, where we'd celebrated his law school acceptance letter, where he'd nervously asked my advice before proposing to Victoria. God, Victoria. I'd welcomed that woman into my family. I'd written a check for $20,000 for their wedding. I'd bought Emma's crib, her first bicycle. And this is how she repaid my son? By destroying him? But I couldn't think about that now. I needed facts, evidence, a strategy. I made David a sandwich, turkey and cheese, his favorite. And he devoured it like he hadn't eaten in days, probably because he hadn't. Then I poured him coffee, pulled out a legal pad, clicked my pen, and became attorney Margaret Harrison again. "Start from the beginning," I said. When did this really start? David stared into his coffee cup for what felt like forever. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded hollow, empty. It started about 18 months ago, right after I got promoted to senior financial analyst. My salary jumped to $180,000 a year, plus quarterly bonuses. Victoria threw this huge celebration dinner, invited Linda, made all my favorite foods, even bought champagne. She and Linda made this big toast about how our family was finally secure. I wrote on my pad, 18 months ago, salary increase, the word finally. I remember thinking it was weird that she said, finally, David continued. I mean, we were already doing fine, but I was too happy about the promotion to question it. Classic, I thought. They'd been waiting for him to be worth more before they made their move. That's when Linda started coming over more, David said. Every single day. She'd be there when I got home from work. She'd stay for dinner, help put Emma to bed, sometimes spend the night. Victoria said her mom was lonely after her dad died, and I felt bad for her. I thought I was being a good son-in-law, being supportive. I knew this technique. I'd seen it in 100 cases. Move in the controlling family member, normalize their constant presence, make the victim feel guilty for wanting boundaries. Then Victoria suggested we refinance the house, David said, his voice getting quieter. She said with my new salary, we could get a better interest rate and pull out some equity to renovate the kitchen. It made sense. The kitchen was outdated, and the numbers she showed me looked good, so I agreed. Who handled the refinance? That's the thing. Linda insisted we use her friend, Trevor Mason, said he was the best real estate agent in the county, that he'd get us an amazing deal. And he did get us a good rate, I'll give him that. But Mom, David's hands clenched into fists on the table. There were meetings I wasn't invited to. Documents Victoria said she'd already reviewed, so I didn't need to read them carefully. She'd just put them in front of me at dinner, hand me a pen and say, sign here, here, and here. I trusted her. She was my wife. His voice broke on that word, and I had to physically stop myself from driving to Victoria's house right that second. How much equity did you pull out? $150,000. David dropped his head into his hands. She said we were using it for the kitchen renovation. We never renovated anything, Mom. Not one tile. The money just disappeared. I wrote, $150,000 missing. Real estate agent Trevor Mason. Accomplice? What else did you sign? David laughed, but it was a terrible sound. Nothing like his real laugh. Everything. I signed everything she put in front of me. New credit cards. She said we needed better rewards points. A car loan for a BMW. She traded in her Honda and said she deserved something nice. Business loan documents. She said she was starting a marketing consulting company and needed me as a co-signer. I signed it all, Mom. Every piece of paper she gave me, I signed it without reading because she was my wife, and Linda was always there saying, this is what smart families do, and you're so lucky to have a wife who handles the finances. The picture was becoming clearer and uglier by the second. Financial abuse, forgery, fraud, and I was willing to bet Trevor Mason was more than just their real estate agent. When did you realize the money was gone? About 6 months ago. I logged into our joint checking account to transfer some money and saw it was overdrawn. We should have had at least $30,000 in there. I just deposited my quarterly bonus of $15,000. But there was negative $2,400. Negative, Mom. David's voice rose with panic, reliving the moment. I asked Victoria about it, and she lost it, started crying, saying I was accusing her of something terrible, asking if I didn't trust her. Linda was there, of course, and she started lecturing me about how real men don't micromanage their wives' spending, how I was being controlling and paranoid. Gaslighting, textbook emotional manipulation, make the victim feel guilty for noticing the abuse. So I apologized, David said, and I could hear the shame in his voice. Can you believe that? I apologized for checking our own bank account. Victoria calmed down and promised she'd been handling some family expenses for Linda and had accidentally used the wrong account. Said she'd transfer the money back. She never did. What happened over the next few months? It got worse. Bills started arriving past due, utilities, credit cards, the mortgage. I'd get these notices in the mail, and when I asked Victoria, she'd say she'd already paid them online, that it must be a computer error. Credit cards I didn't remember opening were suddenly maxed out at $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. My credit score dropped from 780 to 520 in 3 months. I knew what that meant. A credit score drop like that would affect everything: future loans, job prospects, even apartment rentals. They were systematically destroying his financial life. Then one day I came home from work, and the Lexus was gone, David continued. Just gone from the driveway. I asked Victoria where it was, and she said... His voice dropped to barely a whisper. She said it had been repossessed because I'd missed payments. But, Mom, I never missed a payment. I had automatic payments set up through my bank. Did you check your account? I tried. My access was locked. When I called the bank, they said the account had been closed 3 months earlier. By me. Except I never closed it. Someone forged my signature on the closure documents. This was worse than financial abuse. This was identity theft, criminal fraud. These women were going to prison if I had anything to say about it. What did Victoria say when you confronted her? David's whole body went rigid. That was my big mistake. That was when everything changed. I confronted both of them, Victoria and Linda. I had printouts from the bank, credit card statements I'd managed to access by calling the companies directly. I laid them all out on the kitchen table and demanded to know what the hell was going on. He paused, and I could see him reliving the moment. They looked at each other and smiled, Mom. They actually smiled, like they'd been waiting for this moment. My blood ran cold. Linda spoke first. She said, David, you've been under so much stress lately. We're worried about you. You've been acting paranoid, aggressive. We think you might be having a mental health crisis. False allegations. Setting up a narrative of mental instability. I'd seen this strategy before in custody battles. Victoria joined in, David continued, his voice shaking now. She said I'd been different lately, that she was scared of me, that I'd been yelling at Emma. Mom, I never yelled at Emma. Never. I would cut off my own arm before I'd hurt my daughter. But they just kept talking over me, backing each other up, making it sound like I was crazy. What happened next? Linda said she had a friend in Child Protective Services. Victoria said she'd been documenting my concerning behaviors for months. Then Linda pulled out papers, some kind of legal document, and said if I didn't sign over power of attorney to Victoria immediately, they'd file a restraining order claiming I was a danger to Emma. They'd have me arrested in front of my daughter that very night. Did you sign it? The silence answered my question before David's broken whisper did. I signed it. Emma was in the next room, Mom. I could hear her playing with her dolls. Linda had her phone out, finger hovering over 911. She said if I didn't sign, she'd call the police right then and claim I'd threatened them both. She'd have me arrested in front of my 7-year-old daughter. So I signed. Power of attorney. That meant Victoria could access everything now. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, retirement funds, property deeds, everything. 2 days later, I came home from work, and the locks were changed, David said. Victoria was standing at the door with a suitcase. My clothes, she said. She told me I needed to take some time to work on myself. She kept Emma inside. I could see her little face in the window crying for me. Linda was behind Victoria, arms crossed, smiling. Did they file a court order? No. I went to the courthouse the next day and searched every database. Nothing. It was all a lie, just a threat to control me. But I didn't know where to go. I checked my accounts. Everything was empty. My credit cards were maxed out. I couldn't get a hotel room. I couldn't even rent an apartment with my destroyed credit. I called my boss to ask for a salary advance and found out I'd been put on voluntary leave 2 weeks earlier. Victoria called your workplace? She must have. With power of attorney, she could have sent emails from my account, forged my signature on leave requests. My boss said I'd been sending concerning emails about needing time off for personal issues. I was too ashamed to explain the truth. So I've been sleeping in my car, until she sold that too. Then I've been sleeping in shelters, under bridges, doing odd jobs for cash, trying to save enough to hire a lawyer. My son, my beautiful, successful, kind-hearted son, had been systematically destroyed by his wife and mother-in-law while I'd been living in my comfortable house, going to book club, completely oblivious. "And Emma?" I asked, though I almost didn't want to know the answer. David's face crumpled completely. "I haven't seen her in 3 weeks. Victoria blocked my number. When I went to the house, Linda threatened to call the police. She said if I kept harassing them, they'd file for an emergency custody order claiming I'm mentally unstable and dangerous. I couldn't risk it, Mom. If a judge believes them, if they convince someone I'm a threat, I might lose her forever." That was it. That was the moment I decided Victoria and Linda Chen were going to pay for every single thing they'd done to my son. They thought they could prey on David because he was kind, trusting, gentle. They thought they could get away with it because he was isolated and afraid. But they'd forgotten one crucial thing. David had a mother who'd spent 40 years destroying people like them in courtrooms across this county. A mother who knew every judge, every prosecutor, every detective worth knowing. A mother who was absolutely furious. "David, listen to me very carefully," I said, my voice deadly calm. "You didn't do anything wrong. Do you understand me? You were abused, manipulated, defrauded. This is not your fault." "But I signed." "You signed under duress and false pretenses. Any decent attorney will get those documents invalidated. And lucky for you, you happen to know one of the best family law attorneys in this county." I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Me." "Mom, they have connections. Linda said she knows people in the courts, in social services." "David." I reached across the table and gripped his hand. "I've been practicing law in this county for 40 years. I've won cases against abusers with real connections, real power, real money. Linda Chen is a small-time con artist who's about to discover she picked the wrong family to destroy. But we need to be smart. We need evidence, documentation, and we need help." I pulled out my phone and stared at the name I'd avoided for 15 years, James Patterson, my former law partner. We'd had a terrible falling out over a case. I'd accused him of being too aggressive. He'd accused me of being too soft. We'd said things we couldn't take back. We'd built one of the best family law practices in the state together, and we'd destroyed it with our stubbornness. "Who are you calling?" David asked. "Someone I should have called years ago to apologize to. Someone who's going to help us take Victoria and Linda Chen apart, piece by piece." I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I almost hung up. Then, "Margaret? Margaret Harrison?" His voice. After 15 years, James Patterson's voice. "Hello, James," I said quietly. "I need your help, and before you hang up, just know I'm calling about something much more important than our past. I'm calling about saving my son and granddaughter from 2 women who made a very big mistake. They hurt my family, and they're about to learn what happens when they do that." There was a long pause. Then, "I'm listening." James Patterson arrived at my house 90 minutes later. I watched through the window as he parked his silver Mercedes and pulled 2 banker boxes from his trunk. He'd aged well, silver hair instead of the dark brown I remembered, wire-rimmed glasses, still wearing those expensive 3-piece suits he'd always favored. For a moment, I was transported back 20 years to when we'd been partners, back when we'd been unstoppable in that courtroom. He saw me watching and nodded curtly. All business. That was James. I opened the door before he could knock. "James. Margaret." His voice was neutral, professional. "Thank you for coming." "Don't thank me yet. I haven't decided if I'm taking this case. But he was already walking inside, already setting down his boxes with the efficiency of someone who'd made up his mind before he arrived. Some things never changed. David looked between us, confused and exhausted. "Mom, who is this?" "This is James Patterson," I said, "my former law partner. The best attorney I've ever known, even if we did part on terrible terms." I met James's eyes directly. "Terms I'd like to apologize for if you'll let me." Something softened in James's expression. "Just for a second. Water under the bridge, Margaret. Family comes first, always has." He turned to David, and his voice became gentler. "Now, son, I need you to tell me everything again. Every document you signed, every conversation you remember, every name, every date. Can you do that?" For the next 3 hours, we worked. James had brought voice recording equipment, all legal and court admissible, and recorded David's complete statement. He photographed the few documents David had managed to keep. He made phone calls to people I didn't even know he knew, speaking in low tones about financial investigations and forensic auditing. "I've got Marcus running a complete financial workup," James said, typing rapidly on his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard like a concert pianist. "Banking records, credit reports, property transfers, business filings. If they moved money, we'll find the trail. These people always think they're smarter than they are." He paused, looking up at David. "Tell me about Trevor Mason again, the real estate agent. What do you know about him personally?" David shrugged helplessly. "Not much. Mid-30s maybe. Always wore expensive suits. Drove a Porsche. Linda said he was the best in the business." James's fingers moved across his keyboard. "Trevor Mason, real estate agent, this county." He pulled up several screens, his eyes scanning rapidly. Then he stopped. His jaw tightened. "Margaret, come look at this." I walked around the desk and looked at his laptop screen. It was an Instagram account, Trevor Mason's apparently. Photos of expensive dinners, luxury cars, beach vacations. And there, 3 weeks old, was a photo that made my stomach drop. Trevor Mason and Victoria Chen. At a romantic restaurant, candlelight between them. Victoria leaning in close with an intimate smile. The caption read, "Great evening with my favorite person." "David," I said carefully, "when was this photo taken?" David leaned forward, then went completely pale. That's Victoria and Trevor. But that was the night she said she was having dinner with her college friend Jessica. She said it was girls' night." James scrolled down. More photos. Victoria and Trevor at a wine tasting, at a hotel pool, in what looked like the same car that Portia David had mentioned. The posts went back months. "David, I need to ask you a difficult question," James said gently. "Is there any possibility your wife has been having an affair?" I watched my son process this new betrayal layered on top of everything else. His hands started shaking so badly he had to put down his coffee cup. "We haven't been intimate in over a year," David said, his voice barely audible. "She said it was stress from her job. But now—" He stared at the photos, and I could see understanding dawn in his eyes. "Oh my God, this whole thing? She was planning to leave me all along?" "Not just leave you," James said, his voice hard. "Financially destroy you first, then leave you with nothing while she starts fresh with Trevor. Using your money." My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Margaret, this is Sarah Mitchell. James gave me your number. I'm working this case now. Can you meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.? I've found something you need to see." I showed the text to James. He smiled. Not a nice smile, but a satisfied one. "Detective Sarah Mitchell, Financial Crimes Unit now. I called in a favor while I was driving over. She owes you her life, Margaret, that custody case you won for her 12 years ago." "Sarah Mitchell?" David's eyes widened. "I remember that case. You were all over the news, Mom. Her ex-husband tried to take her kids using forged financial documents and false abuse allegations." Sound familiar? I said grimly. Sarah never forgot what I did for her. She told me once that if I ever needed anything at all, to call. She keeps her promises. James pulled up another screen. Okay. Preliminary financial investigation is coming through from Marcus. He went quiet, reading, his expression darkening with every line. Jesus Christ. What? I moved closer. They've stolen over $400,000, James said flatly. The house refinance, $150. Fraudulent credit cards in David's name, $78,000. His 401k, which they liquidated by forging his signature, $95,000. Investment accounts, $42,000. And a loan taken out against his life insurance policy, $35,000. It's all gone, Margaret. Transferred through various accounts, some in Victoria's name, some in Linda's, and quite a few to an LLC called Chen Mason Consulting. Chen Mason, I repeated. The pieces were falling into place. That's their business, Victoria and Trevor. Exactly. They've been funneling David's money into this LLC, probably planning to claim it as legitimate business income later. Smart, actually. If David hadn't found you, if this had gone on another few months, they might have gotten away with it completely. David made a strangled sound. $400,000? They stole $400,000 from me? Where's the money now? I asked James. That's the interesting part. Most of it's still there, just moved around. They haven't spent it yet, just repositioned it. My guess? They're waiting for something. Maybe a divorce filing where Victoria claims David abandoned the family and she gets full custody plus alimony and child support. Then she can access those accounts legally through the divorce settlement and disappear with Trevor. She's going to take Emma and disappear? David's voice rose in panic. Not if we move first, James said firmly. And we move fast. Tonight. He pulled out a legal pad, covered in notes already, even though he'd only been here 3 hours, and started outlining strategy. This was the James I remembered. Brilliant. Ruthless when necessary. Absolutely devastating when someone crossed his clients. Here's what we're going to do, James said. Margaret, you're going to file an emergency motion first thing tomorrow morning for temporary custody of Emma. The grounds are child endangerment. Victoria and Linda have been using Emma as a hostage to control David, which is psychological abuse of a minor. Will Judge Henderson grant it? David asked. James and I exchanged a look. When Margaret Harrison walks into Carol Henderson's courtroom asking for an emergency custody order, James said. Yes, Carol was Margaret's intern 20 years ago. She clerked for us before she became a judge. She knows your mother doesn't file frivolous motions. She'll grant it. Meanwhile, James continued, Detective Mitchell is going to execute search warrants on Victoria's house, Linda's house, and Trevor Mason's office. We're looking for forged documents, bank statements, any evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse. Elder abuse? I asked. David's 32. But they've been stealing from you too, James said, looking at me. That $20,000 for the wedding? I'm betting Victoria has documentation trying to claim that was a loan, not a gift. When we dig into Linda's background, I guarantee we'll find she's running similar cons on other people. These aren't amateurs, Margaret. They're professional grifters. Can we get warrants that fast? I asked. When the evidence shows over $400,000 in financial fraud, identity theft, forged power of attorney documents, and possible parental kidnapping? James smiled coldly. Absolutely. Sarah's meeting with Judge Rodriguez at 8 a.m. tomorrow. He's a hard ass about financial crimes. Warrants will be signed by noon. And then what? David leaned forward, and for the first time since I'd found him on that street corner, I saw hope in his eyes. And then we spring the trap, I said. We execute the warrant simultaneously with the custody hearing. They won't have time to hide evidence, or move money, or coach each other on their stories. We hit them from all sides at once, criminal, civil, and family court. By tomorrow afternoon, Victoria and Linda will be sitting in police interrogation rooms while Emma is safely in my custody." "What about Trevor?" David asked. James's smile was predatory. "Trevor Mason is going to discover that real estate fraud and conspiracy to commit identity theft carry mandatory minimum sentences. And when he's looking at 7 to 10 years in federal prison, he's going to turn on Victoria and Linda so fast it'll make their heads spin. Conspirators always turn on each other when the walls close in. It's basic criminal psychology." We worked through the night. James drafted emergency motions while I typed David's affidavit, stopping every few minutes to let him compose himself as he recounted details of the abuse. Around 2 a.m, James made a phone call to someone named Marcus, apparently a forensic accountant who specialized in fraud cases, and within an hour, we had a complete financial trail documenting every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every illegal transfer. "This is airtight," James said, reviewing the documents spread across my dining room table. "Every signature they forged, every account they opened in David's name, every wire transfer, every check. It's all documented with timestamps and IP addresses. They were so confident David wouldn't fight back that they didn't even try to hide their tracks well. They got sloppy." "Arrogance," I said, pouring my 4th cup of coffee. "They thought they'd broken him completely. They thought he had no one." "They did break me," David said quietly from the couch, where he'd finally laid down with a blanket. "If you hadn't found me, Mom, I don't know what I would have done. I was starting to think maybe they were right. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I had caused all this somehow. I went to my son and sat beside him. You're not crazy. You're a survivor, and tomorrow you're going to get your daughter back and start getting your life back. Do you believe me?" David looked at me with those same eyes I'd looked into when he was a newborn, when he was a scared 5-year-old after his father left, when he was a nervous teenager asking about college. "I believe you, Mom." At 6 a.m, my phone rang. Detective Sarah Mitchell. "Margaret Harrison," her voice came through, professional but warm. "It's been too long. Sarah, thank you for helping with this." "Are you kidding? After what you did for me and my kids, I'd walk through fire for you, Margaret. Besides, when James explained the situation, I got interested. I started digging into Linda Chen's background." She paused. "Margaret, this woman is dirty. She's not just some mother helping her daughter con one guy. She's been under investigation by Social Services Fraud Division for 8 months. "What?" "She's been claiming disability payments while running a cash business on the side. We've been building a case, but we didn't have enough for a warrant. Your situation just gave us probable cause to dig deeper. When we execute those warrants today, we're not just looking at what they did to David. Linda Chen is looking at federal fraud charges." I felt a savage satisfaction. She's going down for more than just destroying my son? "Oh yeah, and Victoria? She's going to have to choose, go down with her mother or cooperate with prosecutors. Either way, your son's getting justice. We're executing warrants at 1 p.m. Your custody hearing is at 2. Are you ready?" More than ready. After I hung up, James was watching me with an expression I remembered from our partnership days. "What is it?" I asked. "I miss this," he said quietly. "Working with you. Fighting for people who deserve justice. I'm sorry it took 15 years and your family being attacked for me to say this, but Margaret, I'm sorry. For everything I said, for how we ended." "I'm sorry too," I said. We were both stubborn idiots. We were. James smiled, a real smile this time. But we made a hell of a team, and these people have no idea what's coming for them, do they? I looked at the evidence spread across my table, at my son finally sleeping peacefully on my couch, at James, my friend, my partner, my ally. "Not a clue," I said. "Not a single clue." At exactly 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, less than 24 hours after I'd found David counting coins on that street corner, Detective Sarah Mitchell knocked on Victoria Chen's door. I wasn't there to witness it, but Sarah called me immediately afterward to describe every detail. And honestly, I wished I could have seen Victoria's face. Victoria answered the door in yoga pants and a designer sweater, probably purchased with David's stolen money. Linda was visible behind her in the living room, sitting on the couch like she owned the place. Emma was at school, thank God. We'd timed everything specifically to make sure my granddaughter wouldn't witness her mother being investigated. Victoria Chen? Sarah held up her badge. I'm Detective Sarah Mitchell with the Financial Crimes Unit. I have a warrant to search these premises for evidence of bank fraud, identity theft, and forgery. I need you to step aside. According to Sarah, Victoria's face went sheet white. What? There must be some mistake. No mistake, ma'am. We also have warrants for your financial records, your phone, your computer, and your vehicle. And we have questions about approximately $400,000 in fraudulent transactions connected to your husband, David Harrison's accounts. I don't know what you're talking about, Victoria said, but her voice was shaking. David handles all our finances. That's interesting, Sarah interrupted, because we have documented evidence that you've been handling David's finances without his knowledge or consent for the past 18 months. That's called fraud, Mrs. Chen. Now, are you going to let us in, or do I need to explain your rights in front of your neighbors? Linda came to the door then, all aggressive bluster. This is harassment. I know the police chief personally. I know the district attorney. You can't just barge in here. Ma'am, are you Linda Chen? Yes, and I'm telling you right now. Perfect. We have a warrant to search your residence as well. Officers are executing that warrant at your home right now. And just so you know, the social services fraud investigation you've been under for 8 months, we're executing those warrants simultaneously, so you might want to cooperate. Sarah said Linda actually stumbled backward, all her bravado evaporating in an instant. The search took 3 hours. Sarah's team found everything. Forged documents in Victoria's home office. David's signatures expertly copied, but not quite perfect under forensic analysis. Bank statements showing systematic transfers to the Chen Mason LLC account. Emails between Victoria and Trevor detailing their entire plan, including one that said, "Can't believe we're actually pulling this off. David's too trusting to notice." And then, this was the part that made me actually gasp when Sarah told me. They found a handwritten timeline in Linda's bedroom. The title, in Linda's own handwriting, read, Project David, Timeline and Goals. These idiots had documented their own crime. They'd actually written down their month-by-month plan to destroy my son, including target amounts to steal and specific manipulation tactics to use. While Sarah's team was tearing apart Victoria's house, another unit was hitting Trevor Mason's real estate office downtown. Trevor, apparently, saw the police cars pulling up and panicked. He literally ran out the back door of his office and tried to drive away in that Porsche. He made it 3 blocks before patrol officers pulled him over. He's singing like a canary, Sarah told me with satisfaction. Gave up Victoria and Linda in the first 5 minutes of questioning. Claims they manipulated him, that he didn't know it was fraud, that he was just following their instructions. Classic. Will that defense work? Not when we have emails from him saying, "Can't believe how easy this is, and David's an idiot, never even checks the paperwork." Trevor Mason is going to prison, Margaret. Probably 7 to 10 years when all is said and done. And he knows it. He's already asking about plea deals. While all this was happening, David and I sat in the courthouse waiting area for our custody hearing. James had brought David one of his own suits, quickly tailored to fit. David looked thin and tired, but he looked like himself again, like the confident, successful man he'd been before Victoria destroyed him. "Mom, what if Judge Henderson doesn't believe me?" David's leg bounced nervously. "What if Victoria somehow convinces her I'm the problem?" I took his hand. "David, look at me. I've been doing this for 40 years. I know Carol Henderson. She doesn't tolerate child manipulation or parental alienation. And when she sees the evidence, the documented fraud, the forced isolation, the threats, the fact that police are executing search warrants right now, she's going to be furious. Trust me." At 2 o'clock sharp, we entered Judge Carol Henderson's courtroom. Victoria wasn't there. She was still being questioned by police, but her attorney was present. a young man named Brad Hoffman, probably fresh out of law school, who looked increasingly uncomfortable as James laid out our case. Your Honor, James began, his voice commanding the courtroom like he'd never left. We are seeking an emergency temporary custody order placing Emma Harrison in the custody of her paternal grandmother, Margaret Ann Harrison, based on credible evidence of severe financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and child endangerment by the child's mother, Victoria Chen, and maternal grandmother, Linda Chen. Brad stood up quickly. Your Honor, this is clearly a vindictive action by Mr. Harrison, who abandoned his family 3 months ago. Abandoned? James's voice could have cut steel. Your Honor, I'd like to submit David Harrison's sworn affidavit detailing how his wife and mother-in-law systematically isolated him, drained his bank accounts through fraud, and forged signatures, sold his assets without his knowledge, and threatened to make false abuse allegations if he sought help. I'd also like to note that as we speak, Detective Sarah Mitchell of the Financial Crimes Unit is executing search warrants on Mrs. Chen's residence in connection with over $400,000 in documented fraud. Judge Henderson's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me? There are active criminal warrants being executed right now? Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Victoria Chen and her mother Linda Chen are currently under investigation for bank fraud, identity theft, forgery, conspiracy, and financial exploitation. Evidence includes forged documents, fraudulent account transfers, and documented threats to deny Mr. Harrison access to his daughter unless he complied with their illegal demands. Brad looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Your Honor, I wasn't aware of any criminal investigation. My client informed me this was a simple custody dispute. Does your client have physical custody of the minor child right now? Judge Henderson asked sharply. Yes, Your Honor. Emma is currently with her mother. Where is the mother? I believe she's at home, but I haven't been able to reach her for the past 2 hours. That's because she's being questioned by police in connection with multiple felonies, James said. Your Honor, the child's grandmother, Margaret Harrison, is a retired family law attorney with an impeccable 40-year record in this county. She's prepared to take immediate custody of Emma to ensure the child's safety and stability while this situation is resolved. We're also requesting that Victoria Chen's contact with Emma be supervised only, pending resolution of the criminal charges. Judge Henderson looked directly at me. Margaret, I haven't seen you in this courtroom in 3 years. You wouldn't be here unless this was serious. I stood. Your Honor, this is my granddaughter and my son. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't absolutely certain Emma is in psychological danger. Her mother has been using her as a weapon to manipulate and control David. The child has witnessed threats, manipulation, and her father's systematic destruction. She needs a stable, safe environment immediately. Judge Henderson reviewed the documents before her in silence. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear David's nervous breathing beside me. Finally, she spoke. Mr. Hoffman, I've read Mr. Harrison's affidavit. The allegations are extremely severe. Mr. Harrison, is everything in this sworn statement true? David stood, his voice shaking but clear. Yes, Your Honor. Every word. My wife and her mother destroyed my life, took everything I had, and threatened to take my daughter if I fought back. I was so terrified of losing Emma that I lived on the streets rather than risk it. The only reason I'm standing here today is because my mother found me and gave me the courage to fight for my child. The courtroom was silent for a long moment. This is one of the most disturbing cases I've encountered in 15 years on the bench, Judge Henderson said finally. Based on the evidence presented, the sworn affidavit, and the fact that there is an active criminal investigation involving the child's mother, I am granting the emergency motion. Temporary custody of Emma Harrison is awarded to Margaret Ann Harrison, effective immediately. Mrs. Victoria Chen's contact with the minor child will be supervised only, pending resolution of the criminal charges. Mr. David Harrison is granted supervised visitation starting today, to be increased to unsupervised as circumstances permit. We'll schedule a full hearing in 30 days. Your Honor, Brad started. Counsel, I suggest you contact your client immediately and inform her that she needs to cooperate with law enforcement and make arrangements to transfer custody of Emma Harrison by 5 p.m. today. If she fails to do so, I will issue a bench warrant for custodial interference. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor. David gripped my hand so hard I thought my fingers might break. James was already gathering papers, his expression satisfied but controlled. We'd won. In less than 24 hours, we'd gone from finding David on a street corner to securing custody of Emma and setting in motion the complete destruction of Victoria and Linda's scheme. As we left the courthouse, my phone rang. Sarah. Margaret? They're bringing Victoria and Linda to the station for formal questioning. Trevor's already made a deal. He's testifying against both of them in exchange for a reduced sentence. Victoria's attorney just advised her to cooperate. She's asking if she can speak with David. Absolutely not, I said immediately. She doesn't get to manipulate him anymore. That's what I told her. But Margaret, Linda's different. She's refusing to cooperate, insisting she did nothing wrong, threatening to sue everyone. And she's demanding to speak with you specifically. With me? She says, and I quote, I want to talk to that old woman who thinks she can threaten my family. I think she wants to intimidate you into dropping everything. I looked at James, who was listening. He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. Tell Linda Chen I'll be happy to see her, I said. But tell her to bring her attorney, because anything she says to me, I'm reporting directly to the prosecutor and using in civil court. You sure you want to face her? Sarah, I spent 40 years facing down abusers and predators. Linda Chen is nothing special. Let her come. I have a few things I'd like to say to her face. The meeting was set for 4 o'clock at the police station. Sarah offered me an interrogation room, but I had a better idea. I wanted this confrontation on my territory, in my home, where David had been safe, where we'd built our case. Sarah agreed, with one condition: 2 officers would be present, stationed just outside, in case things got ugly. They won't get ugly, I told her. These women are cowards. They only attack people who can't fight back. By 3:30, everything was ready. James sat at my dining room table with his laptop and boxes of evidence. David was upstairs. I didn't want him to face them yet. Not until I'd had my say. My living room looked exactly as it always did. Comfortable furniture, family photos on the walls, the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Normal. Peaceful. The last place Victoria and Linda would expect to be destroyed. At exactly 4 o'clock, a police car pulled up outside. Sarah Mitchell got out first, then opened the back door. Victoria Chen stepped out, and I barely recognized her. The confident, put-together woman who'd smiled at family dinners was gone. This Victoria had dark circles under her eyes, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked terrified. Linda Chen climbed out after her daughter, and she was different. She wasn't afraid. She was furious. Her jaw was set, her eyes hard, her whole body radiating anger as she marched toward my front door like she was preparing for battle. Good. Let her be angry. Angry people make mistakes. I opened the door before they could knock. Victoria. Linda, please come in. Linda pushed past me without a word. Victoria hesitated, her eyes darting around like she was looking for escape routes. Sarah gave her a gentle push forward. Have a seat, I said, gesturing to my couch, the same couch where David and Emma used to read stories together, where my granddaughter had laughed and played before these women poisoned everything. Linda sat down like she owned the place, crossing her arms. I want to make one thing very clear, Margaret. We did nothing wrong. This is all a misunderstanding, and you're going to regret making false accusations against my family. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I sat down across from her, calm and collected. James remained at the dining room table, typing quietly. Sarah stood by the door, arms crossed. A misunderstanding, I repeated. Is that what you're calling $400,000 in fraud? David gave Victoria access to those accounts, Linda said quickly. He signed documents. He agreed to everything. If he's confused now, that's his problem, not ours. Mom, maybe we should just… Victoria started, but Linda cut her off with a sharp look. Be quiet, Victoria. I'm handling this. Linda turned back to me, and her smile was nasty. You think you're so smart, don't you, Margaret? Retired lawyer, big reputation. But you're just a bitter old woman who can't accept that her son is a failure. David couldn't manage his own finances, so Victoria helped him. We helped him, and this is the thanks we get? I let her talk. Let her dig herself deeper. James was recording every word, legally, with everyone's knowledge, as Sarah had informed them when they entered. Where's David anyway? Linda asked, looking around. Too ashamed to face us? Too embarrassed to admit he's been lying to you? David is upstairs, I said quietly, and he'll be down shortly. But first, Linda, I want to give you one chance to tell the truth, cooperate with investigators, and maybe, avoid spending the next decade in federal prison. Linda laughed, actually laughed. Prison? For what? Helping my son-in-law manage his money? You're delusional. Mom, please. Victoria tried again, but Linda wasn't listening. Let me tell you something, Margaret. I've been dealing with people like you my whole life. People who think they're better than everyone else, who think they can push others around just because they wear a suit and know some lawyers. Well, I know lawyers too. I know judges. I know people in social services who owe me favors you picked the wrong family to mess with. I nodded slowly. James, would you play the recording, please? James clicked his laptop. Victoria and Linda's voices filled my living room, crystal clear. The recording Detective Mitchell's team had found on Victoria's phone, a conversation between mother and daughter from 2 months ago. Linda's voice, we're almost there, baby. Another few months and we'll have everything. The house, the retirement accounts, all of it. Then you and Trevor can start fresh somewhere new. Victoria's voice, what about Emma? Linda's voice, what about her? You're her mother. You'll have full custody. David won't fight. He's too broken. And if he tries, we'll destroy him completely. We'll say he's dangerous, unstable. I've already laid the groundwork with my contacts. Victoria's voice, I feel bad sometimes, Mom. He really loved me. Linda's voice, cold. Love doesn't pay the bills, Victoria. Money does. And David Harrison is our lottery ticket. The recording ended. The silence in my living room was deafening. Victoria had gone completely white. Her hands were shaking. Linda's face was red with fury, but I could see the fear underneath. That recording is inadmissible, Linda said, but her voice wasn't confident anymore. You can't use that. Actually, Sarah spoke up from the doorway, it's completely admissible. It was found on Victoria's phone during a legal search with a warrant. Keep talking, though. I'm enjoying this. I pulled out a folder from the coffee table. The evidence James and I had compiled. Let me tell you what else we have, Linda. We have bank records showing systematic transfers from David's accounts to your LLC. We have forged signatures, David's signature on documents he never saw, let alone signed. We have emails between you, Victoria, and Trevor Mason detailing your entire scheme. We have your handwritten timeline. Project David, wasn't it? Very thorough. You even included target amounts for each month. Linda's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I continued, my voice steady and cold. We have testimony from David's employer that someone impersonating him requested leave. We have the fraudulent power of attorney document signed under duress. We have documentation that you, Linda, have been collecting disability payments while running a cash business. We have evidence of identity theft, bank fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and child endangerment. I stood up and walked closer to where they sat. Victoria was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Linda just stared at me with pure hatred. But you want to know what I have that matters most? I said softly. I have my son, alive, safe, upstairs in my house, instead of dead under a bridge somewhere because you destroyed him so completely he saw no way out. You want to know what you miscalculated, Linda? You assumed David had nobody. You assumed he was completely alone. You forgot about me. You can't prove, Linda started, but I cut her off. I can prove all of it, and I will. In criminal court, where you're facing 7 to 10 years in federal prison. In civil court, where I'm suing you for every penny you have and will ever have. And in family court, where you will never, ever see my granddaughter again. Victoria broke. Completely broke. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Mom said it would just be a little money, just enough to start the business with Trevor, and then— Shut up, Victoria, Linda hissed. No! Victoria turned to her mother, and I saw years of manipulation crumbling. No, Mom, I'm done. They have everything. Trevor already gave us up. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over, Linda said, but she sounded desperate now. It's over, I said firmly. Victoria, your attorney has already discussed a plea deal. If you cooperate, testify against your mother and Trevor, you might get a reduced sentence. You might get to have some kind of relationship with Emma someday, though it will be years from now, and it will be supervised. But you need to make that choice right now. Victoria looked at her mother, then at me. What do I have to do? Tell the truth, all of it, on record, right now. Victoria, if you say one more word— Linda started to stand, but Sarah moved forward quickly. Sit down, Ms. Chen. Or I'll arrest you right now for witness intimidation. Linda sat, her face twisted with rage. Victoria took a shaking breath. It was Mom's idea. All of it. She said David was perfect, successful, trusting, weak. She said men like him were easy targets. She'd done it before, with her ex-husband, with 2 other men before I met David. She taught me how to do it, how to isolate him, how to gain control, how to make him doubt himself. Victoria— Linda's voice was dangerous. She introduced me to Trevor, Victoria continued, words spilling out now. Said we'd need a real estate agent who could help move money around. Trevor and we were together before I even married David. The whole thing was a setup from the beginning. I married him for his money. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I should have felt satisfaction, victory. But all I felt was sadness. Sadness for my son, who'd loved this woman and been betrayed. Sadness for Emma, who'd lose her mother. Sadness that people like Linda existed in the world. David, I called toward the stairs. You can come down now. My son appeared at the top of the stairs. He'd been listening to everything. He walked down slowly, and Victoria's face crumpled when she saw him. David, I'm sorry. Don't, David said quietly. His voice was steady, strong. Don't apologize to me. You can't undo what you did. You can't give me back the 3 months I spent on the streets. You can't give Emma back the father you took from her. You can't give me back the trust I'll never have again. He walked past them without another glance and stood beside me. But you can live with what you've done, and you can face the consequences. Linda stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. I want my lawyer. I'm leaving. Actually, Sarah said, pulling out handcuffs, you're not. Linda Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, forgery, and social services fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I watched as Sarah read Linda her rights and cuffed her hands behind her back. Linda was screaming now, threatening lawsuits, demanding lawyers, calling me names I won't repeat. Sarah led her out to the police car, and her voice faded as the door closed. Victoria sat on my couch, crying. Another officer came in to take her statement, and she went willingly, broken and defeated. When they were finally gone, my house was quiet again. James started packing up his laptop and files. David sat down heavily, like all his energy had drained away. "Is it really over?" he asked. "The criminal case is just beginning," James said. "But yes, David, they can't hurt you anymore. We won." "We won," I repeated, putting my arm around my son. "And tomorrow, we pick up Emma from school together. We tell her the truth, age-appropriate, gentle, but the truth. And we start rebuilding." David leaned his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was a little boy. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never," I whispered. "I will never give up on you. That's what mothers do. We fight." After they left, I sat in my living room and cried. Not for Victoria or Linda. They'd made their choices and would live with the consequences. I cried for David. For the innocent, trusting man he'd been who would never exist again. For Emma, who'd lost her mother to prison. For the family dinners and Sunday morning coffees that could never be reclaimed. James left quietly, squeezing my shoulder on his way out. "Call me tomorrow," he said. "We still have paperwork to file." David came down from upstairs and sat beside me. We didn't speak for a long time. Sometimes there are no words big enough to hold that kind of pain. "I should have seen it," he finally said. "How did I not see it?" "Because you loved her," I said. "Because you're a good person who trusts people. That's not a weakness, David. That's who you are. Don't let them take that from you, too." The next morning, we picked up Emma from school together. My granddaughter ran to David and threw her arms around him, crying. "Daddy, where were you? Mommy said you went away." David knelt down and held her tight. "I didn't go away, sweetheart. I would never leave you. Never. I had some problems, but Grandma helped me fix them, and now we're going to be together every day." "Can I live with you and Grandma?" "For a while, yes. Would you like that?" Emma nodded against his chest, and I watched my son hold his daughter, and something in my heart started to heal. The legal process took months. Victoria pled guilty to fraud and identity theft in exchange for a reduced sentence of 4 years. She's currently serving her time at a federal facility 3 hours away. She writes letters to Emma sometimes, though Emma chooses not to read them yet. Maybe someday she will. Maybe someday she'll be ready. Linda Chen refused to cooperate. She went to trial, was found guilty on 12 counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The judge sentenced her to 9 years in federal prison. She'll be 72 when she gets out, if she lives that long. I don't think about her much anymore. Trevor Mason took a plea deal and received 5 years. He testified against both women, giving prosecutors everything they needed. I heard through James that Trevor's real estate license was permanently revoked. His Porsche was seized as proceeds of crime. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks it was worth it. David's credit score took a year to rebuild. James helped him file disputes on every fraudulent account, every forged document. Slowly, painfully, we unwound the damage Victoria and Linda had done. The house was foreclosed. There was no saving it. But James negotiated a settlement where David wasn't held liable for the fraudulent debt. I sued Victoria and Linda in civil court for the full $400,000 plus damages. We were awarded a judgment, though I'll probably never see most of that money. But that wasn't really the point. The point was justice. The point was making sure it was documented, official, undeniable. 6 months after that day in my living room, David got a job offer from a company that had heard his story. Not pity, respect. Respect for a man who'd survived, who'd fought back, who'd refused to give up. The salary was good, not as high as before, but enough. Enough to start over. Emma started therapy. A wonderful woman named Dr. Chen, no relation thankfully, who specialized in children of incarcerated parents. Slowly, my granddaughter started smiling again. Started talking about her feelings, started understanding that what happened wasn't her fault. David started therapy too. He needed it. He had nightmares for months, panic attacks when he got mail, couldn't trust anyone with his finances. But he worked through it, one session at a time, one day at a time. I sold my house and bought a bigger one, big enough for David and Emma to live with me as long as they needed. We created new traditions: Saturday morning pancakes, movie nights on Fridays, Emma's bedtime stories read by both me and David. We built a new family from the broken pieces of the old one. A year later, David met someone, a kind woman named Rachel who worked at his company. When he told me about her, I saw the fear in his eyes. What if I can't trust my judgment anymore, Mom? What if I choose wrong again? You won't choose wrong, I told him, because you're not the same man you were. You know what red flags look like now. You know what manipulation sounds like. And David? Anyone who wants to be with you will have to go through me first, and I'm a much better judge of character than you are. He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. I'm 69 now, and I'm not the same woman I was either. Retirement turned out to be temporary. James and I reopened our law practice, Harrison and Patterson, just like the old days. We specialize in financial abuse cases, helping people like David who've been systematically destroyed by the people they trusted most. We don't charge much. Sometimes we don't charge at all, because we know what it's like to be at rock bottom with nowhere to turn. And we know that justice shouldn't be only for people who can afford expensive lawyers. Emma is 8 now, almost 9. She's smart, resilient, stronger than she should have to be at her age. She calls me Grandma Warrior because David told her the story, age-appropriate version of how I saved him. I like that name. It fits. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't driven down 5th and Main that day. If I hadn't seen David counting coins on that street corner. How long would he have survived out there? Would he have given up completely? Would I have lost my son forever? But I did see him, and I did fight for him, and we survived. If you're watching this and you've ever been betrayed by family, manipulated by someone you trusted, destroyed by someone who claimed to love you, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. The people who hurt you made choices, evil choices, selfish choices. That's on them, not you. And you can survive this. You can rebuild. It won't be easy and it won't be quick, but you can come back from this stronger than you were before. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Don't be too proud to accept it when it's offered. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes family is the people who show up when your blood relatives walk away. Fight for yourself the way someone who loves you would fight for you. You deserve justice. You deserve peace. You deserve to be free. If this story helped you, please share it. Someone out there needs to hear it. Someone is going through what David went through, and they need to know they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Where are you watching from today? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, you're stronger than you think. You're braver than you know. And you deserve so much better than what they did to you. Don't ever forget that.